Hello, hello, friends. This is Sherry from the Paper Crafters Workshop, and I'm the designer of the We All Have Baggage collection from Spellbinders and Hero Arts. I'm very honored to be here kicking off Mental Health Awareness Month with this class, and thank you all for joining me. If you happen to add one of our Carry It Together bundles and have invited a friend or a couple of friends to craft with you, then also thank you for that. Because really, that's what this collection is all about. We do have baggage, we have things that we carry, but when we come together with our crafty friends, that is when the magic happens. That's when our load gets lighter, things get easier to carry, and we find reasons to smile and be happy and enjoy the moment. So thank you all for joining me today, and thank you especially to the Spellbinders and Hero Arts team. This was a passion project for many of us working on this collection, and they truly worked some amazing magic to bring this collection together, bring my ideas to the forefront, and put this collection together for all of you to help lighten your load and to make you smile. So here we are with this class today. We are going to be making 4 cards. I'm going to switch over to my desktop camera. We'll take a look at the cards, we'll take a look at the collection, and then we'll take a really quick look at the supplies that you should have on hand in order to make these 4 cards. And then, of course, we will get crafting. There are just a few little things that you need to pull from your stash beyond your basic tools, and then we will get started. So let's switch over and take a look. So here on my desktop, I have the 4 cards that we are going to be making today. I have used what I'm calling a color blocking approach to some of the backgrounds, using some of the gorgeous Spellbinders color wheel cardstock that we have all come to love and that you would have gotten in your I Want It All bundle or in the Carry It Together bundle. The first card that we're going to be making is using the Retro Suitcase stamp and die set. This is really the cornerstone of the collection, and philosophically, it's where the suitcase is where we carry all the things that we are carrying, our emotions, our challenges, and these little travel stickers are the thing that the places that we go to lighten those loads. You know, we've got the ribbon for the awareness, but we've got sunshine and peace and love and so many other things. So this is a great place to start. It'll be the first card that we make, and we're going to have fun doing that. The second one, and this is kind of where the collection started with, and that is with the rolling tote, the rolling craft tote, I think is the official name. I've got it in motion here on a jaunty angle, and it really does mean a lot when friends help friends to keep it light. Our third card here is going to be focusing on the designer purse. This was a lot of fun to play with because there are different handle options, different flap closures, and you can really customize and personalize it by using different colors, patterns, and I'll show you some samples along the way and talk about different ways that you can elevate these cards even further to make them really special. And then we are finishing off with the ribbon, the awareness ribbon card. We're going to be creating this striped background using green. Green is the ribbon color for mental health awareness and is a really fitting way to close out this collection. So those are the 4 cards. And then let's take a very quick look at what is in the collection. So the collection starts with, let me get the right die here, that Retro Suitcase stamp and die. And so it's got your dies, it's got your stamps with your travel stickers, these guys here, and some great little encouraging and uplifting sentiments that tell us it's okay, we all have baggage. Next up, we do have that designer purse with all the different flap closures and the rolling craft tote. These two are standalone dies, but they do have a companion sentiment stamp that was designed by Hero Arts. So truly a collaboration in this project. And this has some cheekier, some little bit more fun sentiments, things that we know, life is short, buy the craft supplies. Crafting is cheaper than therapy. We're going to have a lot of fun with that today. And then the collection rounds out with that awareness ribbon that you can customize your color based on the cause or the awareness that you're trying to raise. There is a little ribbon stamp set that goes well and is sized perfectly to go with all of the pieces. And then again, a whole selection of much more uplifting and encouraging sentiments that you can use when something a little bit more serious is warranted. So those are the 5 pieces to the collection that you would have received in your I Want It All bundle. What else would you have received in your bundle? Well, the other thing you would have received is some cardstock. You do have 10 half sheets, not those guys, 10 half sheets of color wheel cardstock from Spellbinders. And we start with Seaside. So we've got 3 shades of teal, actually. There's Seaside, there is Waterfall, and there is Teal Topaz. Then we have some peachy colors, which is Chiffon and Bellini. And some of these colors are softer, but that's really going to allow our dies and our icons to stand out. On the purple side, we have Fairy Tale, which is a very pale purple, and Lilac. Then we have probably my favorite color in the whole color wheel rainbow, and that is Rainforest. And finishing off with Classic White and Raven, which is your black. The last thing you will have in your kit is a set of gems. These are the Prism AB ones that have more of a purple tone, but I know that there were some kits that may have gotten the crystal mix or opal, because they ran out of these guys. This collection was quite popular, and so they had to make a switch. But if you really did like the purple gems and you only got the crystal ones, you can either dig in your stash to find the purple ones that you like, or you can take one of your alcohol markers and color those clear ones to make the colors that you want. Now, I do recommend that you color them before you put them on your project, but you can customize those as you see fit. So that is what you would have received in your kit. And if you had the carry it together bundle, you will just have the cardstock and the gems. So let me just move that over here. Other things you are going to want to grab from your stash, that is 4 A2 card bases. So when this is folded, it is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Totally up to you if you want a side fold like me or a top fold, whatever is in your stash. You will want your basic tools like your die cutting machine, of course. I'm going to be using my Platinum 6 today, but these dies were designed and scaled so that they would fit on a Scout. So anybody can be crafting with this. You will want things like scissors, your best ever craft tape. I did start a brand new set of plates for my Platinum 6 today, so it's all nice and clean. I've got some foam squares, some large foam squares, as well as some foam strips. Those will really come in handy. Ink, we will be doing some stamping, so a nice black ink for your sentiment. And then I have 4 colors that we're going to be using on a couple of the cards. You use whatever brand you have in your stash. I have pulled from the Hero Hues Core Ink colors. So I have Amethyst, which is a purple. I have Bermuda, which is a teal. I have Butter Bar, which is a yellow, and Green Apple, which is a green. So any brand of those 4 colors, have them ready for your stash. 2 more things. The first thing is optional. Some of the pieces in the die set are a little bit tiny and difficult to glue. So I do have my Spellbinders white liner sheet. It's double-sided adhesive that I put behind my cardstock before I die cut, and it turns your die cut into a sticker. But if you don't have this, don't worry. You can use another die cuttable double-sided adhesive or just your liquid adhesive, whatever you have, it's not going to hurt your project at all. Last but not least, you will need a piece of copy paper. So this is just paper from my computer printer that measures 4 by 6. This is for card number 4, and it will help us to create that striped background, and I'll show you some tips and tricks with that. So that is all the supplies that you need today, other than, again, your basic adhesive, your paper trimmer, your basic tools. I do also have a stamp platform to help me with my stamping, or an acrylic block, whichever you feel most comfortable with. Now I'm going to clean off my desk, but there is one step that we're going to do before we get into the actual cards and actually making the cards. When I designed this, I really had planned on A2 panels for my colored cardstock. So we're just going to go ahead and cut that down into A2 panels so that we are ready to go with each card. So let me just pull all of this off to the side, and let's quickly cut that together so that we are ready to go. So I've just got my my Spellbinders trimmer. Make sure my scoring blade is way out of the way. And these pieces here, all of your pieces should measure 5.5 by 8.5. We are simply going to cut them in half at 4 1/4, so that we have a whole stack of A2 panels ready to go. And you know what? This actually lends itself very nicely to a key reason why crafting is good for our mental health. It is good for reducing stress. And that is, we are completing some repetitive actions. So these are all just the same action over and over again. And when we do these repetitive actions, they really do help us start to kind of meditate. It helps us focus on the here and now without dwelling too much on some of that baggage that we are carrying. It helps create a meditative or a flow state, and really gets us kind of calmed down in the moment and ready to craft. So we're almost there. Just going to finish up these last two. I am just stacking them, the two colors together. And when we get to each card, I will let you know which colors of cardstock to pull out. We will do the die cutting first. Then we will create our backgrounds and assemble our cards. So there, one more lickety split. We have taken that beautiful rainbow of colors and prepped a nice little stack of gorgeous colors here for us to create with. So who's ready to get crafting? Let's move on to card number 1. Okay, here we are with card number 1, and that is our fun little retro suitcase with the we've all got baggage, together we can carry it sentiment. Now this is probably the one that uses the most colors of cardstock, so it's a really great place to get started. We're going to be doing some stamping, and it's a great card to get warmed up with. What I have here in front of me is, once again, my inks. I've got my die and my stamp set. I've got a little piece of that liner sheet, and I also grabbed myself a little tray so that as I'm die cutting, I can go ahead and just put my stuff all in one place and not lose it. The first thing we're going to do is pull out our cardstock, get that sorted, do some basic cutting so that we really maximize that paper that we have, and then do our die cutting. So let's just pull this over to the side and then get things out of the way and dig in. All right, so grab your stack of cardstock and let me tell you what you need and what you can set aside. Also, don't forget your card base. We will need that as well. So to start with, you do need one, and it's one piece of everything unless I tell you otherwise. We will trim it down a little bit as well. So you need one piece of Seaside. This is my keep pile. This is my for later pile. We do need a piece of Waterfall, which is the next one. So keep and set aside. We've got Teal Topaz. We're just going to need a small piece out of that, so we'll cut it down. Rainforest. Sorry, I'm a little bit out of order here, but Rainforest. We will need a piece for some of these great elements. Then we've got Fairy Tale, which is our light purple. So one piece of Fairy Tale to keep, one to save. Our 2 pieces of Lilac we do not need. Then we need, no, we actually do not need the chiffon either. So both of your pieces of chiffon can go off to the side, but we do need 1 piece of the Bellini. We'll need the white for some stamping. Keep the other white and the 2 pieces of black for later on. So this stack can go off to the side for the future cards. And this is what you should have in front of you. Seaside, Waterfall, Teal Topaz, Rainforest, Fairy Tale, Bellini, and white. First thing you're going to do is you're going to grab your Seaside and your Fairy Tale. This is what we are using for the background, so those can just get pulled out and put aside. And then this is what we are going to use for our die cutting. So Waterfall, grab your trimmer. We're going to cut these down a little bit so that we can really maximize our paper. And in most cases, we are going to be cutting it in half this way. So unless I say otherwise, your measurement is going to be 2 3/4. So this is your Waterfall piece. Let's cut it at 2 3/4. Just making sure, checking my notes. 1 piece can go later. 1 piece is for now. Teal Topaz. We only need a 1-inch strip off of this end here. We're going to be using it for our 2 straps and our little handle grip. So a 1-inch strip, putting that in horizontally. There you go. The big piece can go in our other pile. Rainforest. Once again, we only need a 1-inch strip. Cutting that all down. Our chiffon piece, sorry, our Bellini piece, we're going to do that half cut, so the 2 3/4. And this is a recording, so at any point, if you need to pause and rewind and go over something, then please do so and pick it up again when you are ready to continue. So that was pretty easy. Before we put our trimmer away, let's go ahead and cut our background pieces so that they're ready to go when we go to create that background and we don't have to get our trimmer in and out, in and out, in and out. So what we're going to do is we are actually going to take these 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 panels and trim it down to 4 by 5 1/4. Now that is somewhat optional. I like to have a nice little white border around all the outsides, so that's why I like to trim it down. If you are someone who wants to go full edge to edge, then you can skip this step and just watch as we cut that. But I like to have that little white border to close it down. It's just a style thing for myself. So let's trim this to 4 inches. And these little scraps here we won't be using, so you can either recycle or put them in your scrap stash, whichever you see fit. All right, so that's down to 4 by 5 1/4. And we're going to do the same with the Seaside piece. Make sure I just have 4 inches by 5 1/4. There we go. So all those little pieces go off to my scrap pile. And then last but not least, we are going to cut this on the diagonal from the top left to the bottom right. So top left to bottom right. Simply align your corners with the track on your trimmer. Or if you're using more of a guillotine trimmer, just line it up on the edge of your platform. Top left to bottom right, I always do a double check on that. And then I find it easiest to put my blade in the center, push it down, then go down, and then go up. That way you don't bash in your corners too much by trying to get the blade started on that. So we now have two diagonal pieces. We're going to use one. The other one's going to go in our discard pile. We may need it for some of our stamping as well when we get to the fairy tale. So once again, aligning my corner in my track. Put my blade in the center, press down to the bottom, to the top, and we are good to go. So we can go ahead and put our trimmer away for this card. We are all done with the trimmer cutting. And now the fun part, and that is the die cutting. I'm actually going to just take my white and tuck it under there as well so we don't lose it, and keep that ready for when we go to stamp. All right, let me bring over my Platinum 6 right here in the center. Look at my brand new plates. They're nice and shiny. They're going to be well loved by the end of this. And let's start. I always like to start from the big pieces and then go down to the little pieces. So we're going to start with our piece of Bellini, and we are going to grab the large stitched rectangle from our die set. Don't grab the solid one, only grab the stitched one for this one. We will use the solid one when we get to the next step, which is die cutting out the frame. So this is using our Bellini, which is the darker of the two coral, the two peachy papers. And I try to scooch it a little bit towards the top because you will have a little bit extra and it makes a nice, good scrap. And I put it on an angle so that my machine can grab the corner and not hit a speed bump as it tries to die cut. And just a little bit of Best Ever Craft tape to hold it in place. All right, top plate. Probably the hardest part of any of these dies is choosing your color combinations. I played with so many different color combinations when creating samples, and you really can't go wrong. Let's get that tape up. Hold on to it because I can probably use it again. So there is our base. It's a bigger piece so it can go off to the side. Now we are going to go ahead and cut our waterfall piece. This is the medium of our teal pieces. Same idea, we're using that large stitched rectangle, but this time we are going to add that little frame piece that didn't show up very well. This little frame piece from the die set just to create that opening. We are going to be using the center of this piece to cut out, I don't need new tape. I can use this old tape to cut out other pieces, but I like to do it in stages. It's a little bit more work, but it just makes sure I get everything the way I want it to. So let's crank the screw up. And that is it for that outer frame. And I can put that back on my magnet sheet so they don't get lost. So this little extra bit can just go in my scrap pile. Here is my frame. That'll go with my base way up here in the corner. And this piece here, we will tackle next, because what we're going to do is we're going to use that piece to cut our handle, two of our handle pieces. There is the piece that I call the ball piece, which is this piece right here. It's got two little balls on the top. And then this piece I call the sausage piece. And eventually they will assemble together to make your suitcase handle. Now, if you are doing something dimensional, or maybe you just want an extra little bit of reassurance, this ball piece, the little handles here can be quite delicate. So if there's a risk that it's going to bump and move, you may want to cut this ball piece twice and stack them and glue them together. I'm not going to do that today, but that is an option that's available to you to make it a little bit more sturdy. All right, and these little pieces are going to go in my tray so that I don't lose them. There we go. And that is it for that waterfall piece. Okay, next up, let me just get those back. Next, let's take our piece of teal topaz, and I'm going to cut my two straps and my little handle grip. Now, you only have one die for that strap piece, so you do have to cut it twice. But it's very easy to cut, so we'll cut the grip and the strap once, and then we'll go back in and cut it a second time. You only need one of the grip, but two of that strap. Move that over here, because I know if I don't, I'm going to bonk it. Okay, so our handle grip die can go back on our magnet sheet. I'm going to grab a pokey tool, or no, maybe just my tweezers. I think that's one thing I forgot to mention in the first part, that you will want a pair of tweezers if you're like me and like to have something to grab and grip. Poke out the little holes, and let's cut one more strap. And that 1 inch piece is just wide enough to give us enough leeway to cut those out. Okay. So 2 straps is all you need. That goes in that. I'm going to pop out my little holes right now. Have a little pile of confetti, if you will. This you can throw in your scrap pile. And next up, so I'm just realizing that I told you to put something in your scrap pile that you do actually need. We need this piece back, because our corner brackets are made up of 2 pieces. There is, let me grab my die. There is one die that has of the bracket that has holes in it, and that's to create kind of that rivet look. And then there is a solid piece, and that's to provide you some contrast in behind. That solid piece is somewhat optional, but I like to have it in the back so that I've got some great contrast in my colors. So I've got my waterfall piece that is going to use the solid, and then this piece of rainforest is what I'm going to use for the one with the holes. And you can really be frugal and just manipulate your pieces into place here. Once again, this is going to create our meditative state, because we have to do this 4 times. 4 corners, 4 sets of brackets, 4 passes through your die cutting machine. When we were designing these, I did ask if we could at least have 2 of these on one die, but there was a very limited amount of space. So I was given the option to give something up, and I didn't want to. So that means that we have to cut these 4 times, but that's okay. We are here for the good time, and a few extra passes through our die cutting machine is no problem at all. All right, so here's number 2. And I try I try to nest them together so I use up as little space as possible. There we go. Top plate. That's number 2. Pop them out into my little tray. Where'd the other one go? So that's 2. We need 2 more. Solid on the waterfall, holy on the rainforest. That one popped out. All my little confetti pieces. And, oh, my waterfall piece is inside there. Oops. And one more set of these guys, and then we're done. So it's really not that bad. 4 easy passes. There we go. Don't get rid of your rainforest just yet. Hang on to that. Waterfall now is definitely done. Oh, and I did that one backwards. Darn it. Okay, so I've got a piece left over for next time. And that's one of the things with these corner brackets. You could, let's get the right one this time. So solid over here on waterfall. Holy one over here on rainforest. This is a great thing that you could do in front of the TV is dig out all your scraps and just cut sets of brackets, put them in that new little organizer that Spellbinders has. Keep them organized so that when you go to actually create, you don't need to cut all of these pieces. You just have a nice little selection of brackets ready to go whenever you are. Okay, so we are done with the brackets. My bracket's going to go away. This little piece of waterfall now officially can go away. And we've just got this little tiny piece of a rainforest left. That can go in the scraps. And this is where I am going to pull out that piece of liner sheet. And I'm just going to do a little snip and put a little section on the back here because we are going to be cutting out our buckle. Whoops, sorry, our buckle. This little buckle here we need 2 of, and I really do find it easier to have the adhesive already on the back so that you don't have to try and glue it. So I'm just going to grab a little scrap here, peel one side off. This is going on. Oh, that might even be too big. I tend to be very frugal with my liner sheet and make great use of it. But there is one here. Make sure you leave room for your, so maybe we'll go here to the edge for that one little buckle so that we have room for the second buckle. So here's one. This one, though, it came right through, so I'm going to do my best to keep it all together. Put that in my tray, and one more set. So that is the main die cutting for this card. We will come back and do some die cutting when we do our stamps and our stickers and our little tag. But for right now, that is all we need. Hang on to this piece. If you've got a little piece like that, like I do, we can make use of it when we do our little tag tonic. If you don't, we can always just cut another corner off that rainforest. No big deal. Okay, so we can now do some assembly. And you know what, let's do our card base first and put these triangles on so that they don't get lost and out of the way. You do need one piece of the fairy tale and one piece of the seaside. They are both going to end up looking the same, so it does not matter which piece you want. Hang on to that fairy tale. We will need it again in a little bit. And then I'm just going to start with that fairy tale piece and some liquid glue. Make sure it gets flowing here. You could use tape runner or liquid glue, whichever is your preference. And once again, if you trimmed your paper down like I did, make sure you leave that little bit of a white border around the bottom and around the right. And then your seaside one is going to nest right into place beside it. And that is ready to go. So that can go off to the side. You can varnish your fold if you'd like. There we go. Now let's bring all of our bits here to put our suitcase together. Just like I like going from big to small, with the suitcase, I like going from the outside inwards. So I am going to take my frame and use my liquid glue. Again, this is a piece that you could have used the liner sheet on, but because there's such a big space in the middle that you may or may not use, I tend to gravitate to just using my liquid glue on that. And your stitching on your frame is just going to overlap your stitching on the base. Wiggle it into place. And there we go. So there is piece number one. The next thing we're going to do, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit on my camera here, we are going to assemble our four corners. So I need my 4 green brackets, making sure I grab the ones that have the holes and leave the one that didn't have the holes. And grab my waterfall solid ones. 2, 3, and 4. Almost have it. There we go. And these simply layer one on top of each other. So the ones with the holes goes on top. The ones that are solid go underneath. And we're just going to smush them together. Now, when I use this suitcase as a make and take in my store, we did have some people that would put the solid one down here on the suitcase and then layer the riveted one on top. Totally up to you which order you do them in. They will eventually all be on all 4 corners of that suitcase. But this is the habit that I got into, so this is the way we're doing it today. And again, repetitive motion, focusing on the steps that you're doing and not on some of the things you might not want to think about. And hey, this is a great time to chat with your friends if you are crafting with someone. It's quite easy, quite repetitive, so it's not, you won't get too distracted even if you are chatting, and just think of all the fun you can be having. All right. There we go. So once we have our four corners attached together, our four brackets, they're simply going to go on the four corners of our suitcase. One, two, and I like I said, I've been trying different combinations. I've done some more grungy or vintage colors. I've done bright colors. I've done patriotic colors. One of my volunteers did a Disney version. We had another one turn this into a shaker, so you can have lots of fun with that. All right, four corners are ready. We're working from the outside in. So next up is our straps. So I've got my two straps here, and I tend to put the straps with the holes to the top, the buckle holes to the top. As long as you do them both the same way, it's totally up to you which way you do it, but I do like them at the top. Now, if you look at the stitching here, where I tend to landmark is about 2 stitches away from the brackets, and that's where I start my strap and come down. Now, the stitches are not the same top and bottom, so don't necessarily do 2 stitches from the bottom. But if your stitches or your straps don't end up being straight, all you have to say is that it was a bit of a bumpy ride, that those straps moved around. There's lots of reasons, and especially if we are on a rougher journey, these things could move around. But by working from our outside in, when we go to attach our handle, it really helps to give that appearance of centering and symmetry, even if it's not 100% perfect. All right, so now my second strap, again, about 2 stitch marks in. And there we go. And because you are going over layers, you do want to give it like a nice little squeeze to make sure it's sorted out. Okay, next step is the handle. So I've got my ball piece. Whoops. And I think just for visual, I'm going to put a piece of black behind it so that you guys can see it. I want my sausage. And then I want my handle grip. You don't need the black paper. Again, this is just for me to be able to show you the different pieces. So these balls on top of the handle are 100% designed to hold your glue. So I'm just going to hold my little piece at the bottom, put a little dab of glue on those balls, just like that, and grab my sausage and layer that on top. So let me show you. The sausage will hang over the edges. It'll cover those balls, but look how nice and tall that even that stands. And it was really so much easier to put glue on there than on just a post. And then our little handle grip is just going to center on that sausage piece. All right, next up is attaching the handle to the suitcase. So this horizontal piece here on the handle is really just for functionality. It is not going to be seen. The little stubs can be seen, but the horizontal piece is simply where we're going to put our glue and then tuck it in behind our suitcase. And if you aim to center it between your 2 straps, even if your straps aren't centered, everything is going to look centered. So on the top is where we're going to put the glue. And let's tuck it in behind. The liquid glue helps us just kind of wiggle that into place. And there you go. So one more thing to add to our suitcase and we can move on to doing our stamping. So I'm going to put that away. And that is our little buckles. So we have our adhesive already on the back. Or if you need to put adhesive on the back, just flip it over. Little bit of glue will do you. Your buckle has a little vertical prong. I like to always aim for the second hole on my strap and have that prong going upwards. But again, as long as you do it the same way on both left and right, you can do whatever you like. So that is one. And that is two. And just like that, the base of our little suitcase is completely done. So we're going to just set that aside and let it set a little bit. And we're going to grab that scrap of fairy tale right here. And we're going to grab our white. Maybe to make it just be a little bit easier to handle, let's trim that down just a little bit. I'm going to trim it to 2 inches. 2 inches should be more than enough. And I grabbed my suitcase stamp set, but what I did not yet grab is my awareness ribbon for that stamp there. So I grabbed that as well. Now here on my stamp set, I just used a piece of Best Ever Craft tape to create a hinge at the top. And that helps me not lose that acetate backing. But there, I've got my awareness ribbon and I've got my other guys. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to stamp the sun, the ribbon, the yin yang, and the little heart on the purple. Then we'll die cut it. We will die cut the tag, and then I like to stamp the stars afterwards, and that way I don't have to try and align it up within the tag, and we can just finish that guy off. So, hit my MISTI. Let's do get all my little things out of the way here. So I am going to start with the sun. The sun will go down here. And let's put the ribbon. Let's put the ribbon beside it. You know what? Let's do all three. Might as well do all three at once. I'm using mini cubes. Now, if you're using larger ink pads, you may want to do these one at a time so that you have room to work with your ink pad and enough space there. But I'm good there. Get my little cubes. So yellow for the sun. Stamp it over. These stamps are well loved, so I'm pretty confident they're going to stamp beautifully. Maybe just give it an extra push down. All right. Next is my green ribbon. Using the green apple. So that yellow was called Butter Bar. The green is called Green Apple. Maybe one more go with that one. And if you find that your your stamped images are a little bit blotchy at first, don't worry too much. The ink will soak into the paper. I'll do one more just to make sure this is nice and vibrant. So sometimes it's okay to stamp and then walk away and come back. There's those two, and then I need Bermuda for the yin yang. And you know what? I told you the ones I'm using. If you would rather use other ones from the set, go crazy. That one actually turned out really well. I'm going to do one more just for good measure, but I think we're in good shape there. Perfect. So there are my stamps. And like I said, I'm going to do one. The little heart here in purple. Just right here. Gotta get these guys off. I will clean them later. All right, so let's do this one little heart here in purple, which is amethyst. Okay. This guy off. And then we can die cut these guys out. So back to our die cutting machine. Let me zoom back out here. I want to trim this just so it's a little easier to die cut. And I need another little scrap to do the tag. And then these guys. Okay, so if I go over here to my die set, I've got the large circle that works for the sun. It is also going to cut out the ribbon, so I will have to do a second pass on that one. Should be pretty easy to line up. If you can see the yellow outline, you are in a good spot here. I've got the little circle. And then my little stitched square for the heart. And if you get it a bit more on an angle or it's not perfectly straight, that's okay. It's a sticker. It can be any number of things. And then there are two different tags in this set. I'm going to take the pointier one, and that's the one that's going to have our star on it. Get rid of those little confettis that are stuck to my plate. Save my tape. So there's my sun. That can go in my little tray. I do need this again for my ribbon, so I might as well get it ready to go. Get rid of that one. That was my yin yang. We don't need the solid circle anymore. We'll save our tag because we will want to stamp on that. That's where I'll use a block. And our little heart is done. One more pass with the die cut and we are done with all the die cutting for card number 1. So one more pass. Oh, I'm mistaken. We also have to do our little tag string. Okay, so put that guy over here. So remember that little piece of rainforest? There's still room on this white here, so I'm going to put it back on this side in case we need it for another card. My little piece of rainforest. Excuse me. I've got this little tiny corner area here, and I am going to pull this little piece here, which is the loop for our tag. I do not want it to have liner sheet on it. I do not want the glue on it. So make sure it's in that area that does not have liner tape, or just grab another corner of scrap of rainforest as you need. For me, that worked out very fortuitously that I had that little spot. And it's still stuck in my die here. I'm going to leave it there so I don't lose it. Okay, that's it for die cutting. We're going to finish this suitcase off and get it on our card. So let's start with our stickers. We have our ribbon, we have our sun, we have our yin yang, and we have our heart. And I'm going to bring that sample card here. And let's zoom in a little bit so that we can see it up close. There we go. So I'm not doing my tag just yet. I'm just doing these guys. And you know what? If you had planned ahead, you could absolutely have put your stickers down first and then put your straps over top. But I tend to put the straps on, get it assembled, and then figure out the placement of the stamps. So instead of trying to shove it under something that's already glued, this is where I'm just going to give it a little trim with my scissors so that it gives the appearance that it is tucked under the strap, even though it is actually not. So that one I just cut the edge off and I'm going to tuck it here. Do leave some room for that tag. Here, let me go side by side. That might be easier. Let me do the yin yang next. So on the white side, I will give it a little snip. Little glue. And that one's going on the left side of your strap. Okay. The sun is tricky. I want it to look like it's going on either side. And you know what? This one is not at all perfect, but your eye does amazing things and will connect them together for you. So I'm going to do one little snip here, just kind of cutting off the points. And then I'm going to go over just a little bit, maybe even the width of one point there. It's just that little sliver that I've cut off. It is actually, maybe I need to do a little bit more. I guess in theory it should be the width of the strap, but as long as you can fit it in there, it's going to be fine. So put this one down. And the other side. And it's just going to give that visual appearance that it is tucked underneath the strap. And if you can move fast enough to get your little heart in underneath there, great. Otherwise, just cut off the corner in that same way. And stick it there. So it looks like it's underneath the heart. Oops. All right, there we go. Last but not least is our tag. So I'm going to get my little stars, and this one I'm just going to use a block because they're so tiny. Just like so. This one I'm using the purple ink. And just on the tip of your tag, let it soak in before you remove it. There we go. And then this is where you want your little loop here. Now this little loop does have a little slit in the bottom so that it will come apart. There we go, see. And you just want to use that to loop around the post. And then I usually don't even put any glue on this one. This is now where I will use the tag to hold it in place. It's a little bit fiddly, so of course now that you're all watching me on camera, it's going to be a little bit tricky. But take your patience, get that tag into place. That'll hold it down. And a little smidgen, the smidgen of glue right there at the hole. I don't even know if I got anything there. And you can wrestle that other tag loop into place. How pretty! Okay, let's get this guy assembled and finished up. So with this whole collection and with this suitcase in particular, I have found that when I've been doing my samples, let me come back out here. When I've been doing my samples, I tend to always put this on an angle. And part of that, and part of the reason for the diagonals on the background as well, is to create that forward motion. That forward motion that is us moving forward, it is us making our load lighter, it is us moving to a better place. So I always tend to put that on a bit of an angle. Let's go ahead before we do that though and stamp our sentiment just so that it doesn't get in the way. I'm going to do the same sentiment that I did on my sample. We've all got baggage together, we can carry it, but by all means use any of the sentiments off of this this sentiment set that you choose. Maybe you've got someone in mind who is really going to enjoy this card, so pick the sentiment that works right for you. All right, it's going to tuck right into that bottom corner, maybe about a 1/4 of an inch up from the edge of the purple and a 1/4 of an inch in from that right side. Leave us lots of room to put our suitcase on there. If you want to double check, you can do that. And yes, we've got room for this sentiment here. Ink it up. Sentiments can be very delicate, so don't push too hard. You are better off to ink it multiple times versus try to get it all in one try. There we go. So this is now all ready. And I am going to attach my suitcase with 4 large foam squares, one on each corner. That's really all you need. It's pretty stable. It's pretty sturdy. And then the other thing I like to do is take a little bit of a strip. This strip will fit nicely behind the handle, so you just need a little tiny piece like so. And that'll just help that handle from bending. All right, peel. Nice jaunty angle. There we go. And our finishing step is our gems. And I don't know, this is just a me thing. You put the gems wherever it makes you happy. I like to do groupings of 3s. So I'm going to take this second largest, slide it off. I'm going to do a grouping of 3. So second largest, second smallest, and smallest. And I'm going to build my triangle. So I've got to try, if I connect all my clusters of gems, they all line, they make a nice little triangle, which is going to draw your eye in to the focal point, which is our suitcase. And I'm going to do another one down here because that'll also draw attention to our sentiment. So 1, 2, and 3. And we can call that card done. So, retro suitcase. We all have baggage. Together we can carry it. Are you ready for card number 2? Before we move on to card number 2, here are a couple of samples that I made using the using the retro suitcase die. And some of the things you can notice, ways that you can change it up or elevate it is use metallics for your buckles. You can change some of the texture on some of the pieces, and you can also give it a fun background. I use the metallics a lot, and those work really well with the liner sheets. You can use stencils to create your backgrounds, and this one is perfectly sized to fit on top of a gift card holder. So it is super cute and would make a really nice gift for someone. This is the time where I would suggest cutting multiples of that ball piece for your handle, so that your handle is a little bit more sturdy, but it's a fun little gift card holder. And then you can also use the stamps on their own. You don't need to use the suitcase. The stamps make a great random stamped background that you can use for a variety of reasons. So those are just a couple of samples for that retro suitcase die. And like I said, you can have lots and lots of fun with it. All right, the next up is our rolling craft tote. Excuse me. And always like putting it on an angle. The nice thing about this die set is that you have 2 options for the handle. So you can either have it extended for an action mode, or you can have it short and collapsed if you want your rolling tote standing just in place. We're going to use those 3 shades of teal to create this really fun color blocked background, which really gives that sense of motion and helps give that rolling tote a little extra pizzazz. So first and foremost, you do need your die set for the rolling tote. You want your Keep Calm stamp set. We are going to be using the Friends Help Friends Keep It Light, and this is how we roll on this card. From a cardstock standpoint, I'm just going to dig right into my pile here. So from card number 1, we had this smaller piece of the waterfall, so we need that. We have the larger piece of teal topaz. We will cut our piece out of that, so making use of what we've already cut. And then we need our second piece of seaside. That should be right to the bottom of your pile. So we will cut that down to size to fit that. That is for our background. And then for our rolling tote, we are leaning into our purples. So we need one of those pieces of the lilac, which is the darker purple. Our other piece of fairy tale. Nope, that's white. Where's my fairy tale? That other piece of fairy tale. And we're just going to use a little bit of it. If you have room to use the rest of your triangle from card number 1, go for it. But I had planned that it comes out of this. And then you will need a little bit of your raven, and we will need just a tiny piece of white. So we'll cut this piece of white down. We'll leave that, or actually no. Let's go ahead and use our partial piece. Save that solid piece there for another reason. So just a few colors here of cardstock for card number 2. Put that off to the side. And I think we can go ahead and let's put our dies aside. Let's get out our paper trimmer and get our pieces prepped. Like I said, like before, we will work on our die cutting, we will work on our background, and then bring this whole thing together. Okay, where to start? Let's start with our teal pieces and get that background piece ready. So here are our measurements. From Seaside and from Teal Topaz, we are going to cut pieces that are 1 3/4 by 4 1/4. So that's going to go all the way across and come down part of the way. This waterfall piece is going to be a little bit bigger at 2 1/4 by 4 1/4. And then we're going to do some other cuts to put it on a diagonal, but we will do that when we go to assemble that. So let's start with Seaside. Right now my width is 4 1/4, so I want to cut 1 3/4 by 4 1/4. So I will put it in horizontally and cut at 1 3/4. So just that narrow little piece there. Did I do that right? Yep. This piece here can now go back into your stash. Same with our Teal Topaz. Make sure you've got the 4 1/4 piece here. I'm then going to turn it and do that 1 3/4 again. So 1 3/4. These are going to butt right up against each other on the card and make our background. This piece here can go into your stash. And then last but not least, we have this piece here. Again, this longest measurement should be 4 1/4. So we're going to turn it vertical and we're going to cut it at 2 1/4. So we will have a little teeny tiny sliver that is left over that can be put into your scrap pile. And you know what? While we're here, let's go ahead and cut that diagonal. And then it's done and we don't have to worry about it too much anymore. So you're going to take your piece. One side is going to be your left side. The other side is going to be your right side. For right now, though, we're going to put it vertical and we're going to turn it over. Now I'm going to use the grids here on my glass mat, but if you need a ruler or using your trimmer, we're going to take a pencil and we're going to mark 1/2 inch over from each side. Let me zoom in here. So for me, each one of these squares is 1/4 inch. So I'm going to mark over 2 squares. So 1/2 inch from the left side and 1/2 inch from the right side. And just like we did on that diagonal card for card number 1, we're going to do a cut from the tick mark down to the outer corner. And it's going to create that pie shape for us. So let's start on that right side here. The tick mark is going on my track. Sorry, I meant to zoom out there. The tick mark is going on the track. The corner is going on the track. And I'm going to start in the middle. If you find that it's a little wiggly, a little bit of tape can just help you hold it into place. So tick mark, corner, put a little piece of tape there. So now my hand is free. I can push this into the center, go up, go down. And I've got a little sliver which can go in my scrap pile. Gently take your tape off. And it's the back side, so if it happens to pull it a little bit, that's no big deal. I'm going to reverse it, put my tape there so it doesn't move, and do the same thing. So push it down, go up, go down, and now I have my pie. So this pie piece is now going to go onto our card over top of those other pieces. And let's just grab our card base. Forgot to grab that. Give that a little fold. Again, it's up to you whether you want to do a top fold or a side fold. Either one will work. I am going to switch to my tape runner this time. And I'm going to take this lighter piece and dark piece, so Seaside and Teal Topaz. Teal Topaz I'm going to do first, and I want it about an inch up from the bottom. Just like so. If you need a ruler or you need something to help you line it up, you can. I tend to be team eyeball, so I'm just going to have that go straight across there, about an inch from the bottom. And that'll give us room for our sentiment that's going to go across the bottom. Seaside is just going to nest right on top of it, butting up right against that long edge. Oops. Little extra tape where I did not want it. And butting right up against, make sure that your right edge is nice and flush. Everything is even Steven. And there we go. And if you need to, if you are hanging over a little bit that way, you can just take your scissors from behind. Just give it a little haircut. Okay. This is the piece that's going to cheat. So your natural inclination might be to put it so that it is centered over top of that seam. But we want to make sure that this sentiment fits in nicely. And if you cheat it down a little bit, you can just say that that's an artistic choice. You don't need to worry about it being perfectly centered. So I recommend that we actually stamp our sentiment, that this is how we roll, before we put this piece on. So let me grab my little stamping tool. I'm going to put it right here in the middle. And this is how we roll. So this stamp is going to position as close to that top left corner of your Seaside piece as you can get it. It's a nice scripty font, so if you're not perfectly straight, it's very forgiving. And then let's ink it up. And stamp it over. And you know what? First time that turned out really, really well. So I do not need to stamp it a second time. While we're in the stamping platform, while we've got all of these tools out, let's go ahead and stamp our sentiment at the bottom as well. Friends help friends keep it light. And I really did center that top to bottom, left to right as best I could, right here in the bottom. And there, just like that, all of our stamping for this card is now done. That one I may do a second pass. All right. So that is all ready to go. And we can go back to this waterfall piece. Now, if you happen to flip it over, you can take an eraser and get rid of that pencil mark. I know sometimes the edge is a little bit nicer on one side than the other, but it is symmetrical, so it doesn't matter whether you do upside down or right side up. And then again, this is where we're going to kind of fudge it and make sure that this sentiment is completely visible. So it's okay if it's not perfectly even. It's a good thing about color blocking is that you can really camouflage different things and make it look like things are done on purpose, even if maybe they aren't. So that's right against that edge there. My sentiment is nice and clear. And we've created that beautiful multi-layer ombre look with those strips. And it is, again, with that diagonal line, it's giving you that upward and outward motion for our card. Okay, so even though I said we were going to do the die cutting first, we ended up doing the base first, but now it's ready to go. So I'm just going to tuck that aside. We no longer need our measurements, and we can now focus on our die cutting. So let's just lay this out. This might be a little bit easier with this one. Very few pieces of paper, but a few little pieces on the die set. So for our base die, or for our dark purple, which is the main part of our rolling cart, we want this piece here, which is our base. And then this piece here is the front panel. And what I like to do is tuck those little arch corners together to really maximize my paper. Now I also need my top flap, I need my front pocket, and I need my side pocket. The pockets are made up of two pieces. There is a stitched piece, and then there is this side piece here that has a little bit of a gusset. So the unstitched one is the one that is the shadow element. And I always like to match my diagonals. That helps me know which is up and down. The diagonals are always on the bottom part of the pocket. So for the dark purple, the lilac, I need the stitch pocket number 1. I need stitch pocket number 2. And this little guy over here is the top flap. So I need him wherever you can get him to fit. And we are also going to do the little handles, which is this piece here. Over here on the fairy tale, we simply need those 2 gusseted pieces, like so. And what we can probably do before we die cut is I'm just going to trim that off so I can keep that in my stash. And then we're going to finish off with some white and some raven or black. So over here on the rolling tote, we have our straps, which are black. We have our base and our wheel, and we have the base of our handle. So that's going to take up actually 3 of these last 4 dies. This little piece that looks like suspenders is your strap. This piece here that has the solid wheel in it is the base of your handle. And you do cut both the short handle and the tall handle at the same time, so you will build a collection of one size or the other. And then this piece here is our tote base. So that's going to go on here. And again, we'll be able to cut our black paper, our raven paper, in half to make the most use of it. And this little handle, this is the top part of the handle, that's going to go here on the white, and we'll just be able to cut a little piece out of that. So let's start by cutting. I'm going to see if I can slide these off to one side, bring my die cutting machine over. And we'll cut them piece by piece. There are a lot of pieces, but a lot of the colors are the same, so they actually cut very quickly. So again, there is my lilac with all of those tote pieces on it. And because those that base piece has quite a solid edge, I do like to put it on an angle so that I don't have a speed bump through it. I'm just futzing around here trying to get the angles to maximize my space here. There we go. So this is going to crank right through. That first one is a bit of a doozy, but once you get it through, might be a little tight because there's lots of dies on there, but they come through nicely, cut like butter. And then I'm going to put all the pieces back onto my magnet sheet. And when I do that, I like to keep the pieces together that go together so that down the road, I don't forget which pieces go where. So that's that little flap. My pockets. They've got that nice little hole that you can just poke out. And my handle. Let's get my little tray here. Put my 2 handles in. Okay, so I've got a space there for my second parts of my pocket. That's off to one side. I don't think we need this piece of purple, but hang on to it for now anyways, just to be safe. All right. This guy here, I'm going to cut it in my trimmer at 2 inches. 2 inches. This bigger piece can go into our stash. This is for our 2 pockets. Top plate. So that is our pocket shadow. And our other pocket shadow. That can go into your scrap pile. Let's do our white. And sometimes this is what I do when I'm just cutting one little piece, but want to be frugal with my paper. So I'll just cut around it. That you can keep. We might need it in a little bit. And let's see, I'm going to cut this in half at 2 3/4. So one piece can go back in the stash. Let's bring all of these little pieces up. And let's cut. Let's minimize our cutting. So all those pieces are there on our base. And our arms are getting a workout. Our minds are settling as we focus, as we craft. So my little handle pieces. My little scrap can go away. And then my base piece. So with this base piece, there is obviously the main base. This is upside down, but that's our main base. But there is also a little buckle or flap closure that you can see there. So don't lose that little piece. That one I didn't do it this time, but I tend to do it in a contrasting color. You could also use the metallics. There's our little suspender straps. And I did talk about the this one wheel that is on the suspender piece or the strap piece. That is your open wheel. Don't lose that. And there is a solid wheel that came with the handle base. So we've really tried to use as much space as we can to maximize our effectiveness and our efficiency. So there's our solid wheel and our 2 handles. And that's all of our die cutting. Maybe hang on to this. I don't know if we're going to need it or not, but keep it handy. It's always handy to hang on to scraps until we are all done. It's always a big debate on how big or how small your scraps are. You can jot in the comments how big your scraps tend to be. So I've got my bigger pieces here. I got my little pieces here. Let's do a little bit of a zoom in and let us assemble. So once again, it's great to work from the base up. And this die has lots and lots of great etched lines that will help you line things up. So use those as much as possible to the best of your ability. So our base is this square piece. The front flap is going to go on next. That one has two vertical sections. Let me see if I can get it in the camera light. That is where our little suspender piece is going to go. So you want to keep that on the front. Little bit of glue up into the corner there, and then all the way across. Line up your outer edges here. Line up that score line, and that just gives it some nice dimension. The next piece that goes on is our lid or top flap. So where you had that curvy part on that front panel, the curvy part on that front stitched flap is going to go next. There we go. Yep, and yes, I am correct in that the lid goes before the straps. You could do it the other way, and I have done it the other way, but I tend to like it here with the straps keeping the lid closed. So next up is those suspender straps. Much like the suitcase, this horizontal piece is just meant to be foundational and keep those straps together. So on this base piece, there is a horizontal line. This horizontal line is going to go underneath that. You are not going to see it. So don't worry if it doesn't look like it's going to fit. It is meant to go below the line. So line up those horizontals. Line up the verticals. Push that into the top, and your black horizontal is going to go underneath the horizontal score line. Okay, that can set aside just to set for a minute. We're going to build our pockets. So once again, we've got our stitched pieces and our gusset pieces or our shadow pieces. The diagonal lines are going to make a V and come into the center. So this one here is going to go on here. The outside edge is going to line up so that the lighter color is going to be showing on the right. And your side pocket is going to be the opposite. And that's because this tote was really designed kind of on that angle to give you the perspective and the dimension so that it can be rolling in action. So don't worry if it doesn't seem to fit that way. You do want it so that those lighter pieces are meeting in the middle. Diagonals on the bottom. And just wiggle it into place. Use those score lines. Like so. And we can go, let's go ahead and let's attach our little buckle in here first. So that little buckle is going to go, there's an etched line that is perfectly designed for this little buckle. There is no upside down or right side up. It just fits nicely in there. I've never had any trouble making that fit. And then let's go ahead and do the side pocket first, matching your rounded corner with the rounded etched line. Diagonal at the bottom. And that's going to follow the bottom of your tote. Like so. Same with this one. The edge of this die cut piece is going to go on this seam. It will hang over on the left hand side, but that again is just to help give it some depth and some perspective. All right, line it up with your seam, line it up with that embossed line on the top. See how easy this is coming together? It's like a puzzle, but not a hard one. It's like all the edges are the same and they just fit nicely together. All right, I then go to the bottom and then go to the top. So we are going to take our base piece. Once again, this horizontal or somewhat horizontal line is your foundation and it is going to tuck behind. So I like to turn this over. You can see that there is an angle here. I grab my piece by the foot and it's going to go face down on that angle. So right side up, and you can tell where the embossed lines are. Just follow that horizontal like so. Flip it down and line it up. Easy peasy. Flip it back over. If you look really carefully, and it's probably not going to show up on the camera, there is a little semicircle embossed line here. That is where our wheel is going to go. So I've got the two pieces of my wheel. I've got the solid piece, and even super zoomed in, it does look very tiny. And then I've got my detail piece. I've just poked the hole out of the center. The skinny side of the hole, or the area around the hole, goes on the right, and it's just going to layer. And you can tell there is definitely a right way and a wrong way on this. And I tend to just put the glue on the fat side and layer it up. I'm going to I've got a sample here where I use different colors, and you don't always have to use black for the base. I've used Anchor quite a bit just so it's not quite so harsh, but you can see that the skinny part goes on the right, and then it's just going to go onto this little corner of the base. And because the spot is so little, I tend to put the glue on the base, not on the wheel, so I don't have glue all over the place. There we go. Now all that's left is the handle. And there are 3 pieces for the extended handle and 3 pieces for the short handle. And the best way to remember is that all of the long pieces go together and all of the short pieces go together. It's a little bit trickier when you look at that little purple handle grip to know which one is smaller and which one is larger. But when you do put them side by side, there is a slight difference. The longer one also looks like it's a little bit more on an angle. And even though the sizes are different, they assemble very much the same way. I like to grab the white piece, put just a little dab of glue on the ends, and the white piece goes behind the little nubs. And you just wiggle it into place till it looks right. And then your purple handle grip just goes on top. Like so. So there is our little one, and we're going to do the same thing with the larger one. Now, on your larger one, whenever you're doing a project, kind of eyeball it and see how much or how little you want that tucked in based on your project so it doesn't hang off the edge. I tend to do about 1/3 of the way with glue on those posts. Tuck it in behind. And wiggle it into place and finish up with your grip. There we go. So I'm only going to use the extended one this time. You can save your little stubby one for another project. Horizontal is your foundation. Glue is going to go on top, and then it's going to tuck in behind. Just like so. Lots of great little pieces, little design elements to these dies that just make assembly So easy. All right, so our die is done. Our card base is done. We're just going to marry those two together. Scooch out here. And once again, I am going to use foam squares. Your wheel is going to go right above your word keep. And you want to just kind of make sure that you're not covering up your sentiment on this side. It's okay if your handle comes above the seaside piece and if your wheels hang below. Again, breaking those barriers help give it some flow and some movement. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, and once again, I'm going to put a little tiny strip in behind the handle. It's not totally necessary, but it just gives it a little bit more stability. And again, just a little snip on your strip. Fits perfectly in that opening. So, wheel over keep, corner underneath roll, scooch it into place, check it out, and then make sure everything is tucked down. And we can finish once again with some gems. I did 3 sets over here. I think this time I'm going to keep it simple and just do 1 set right in here by the sentiment. I'm going to use the largest. Oops. We'll do one little cluster 1, 2, and 3. So I'm not using the baby one this time. But that just gives it a little bit of sparkle right off the top there. You can definitely add more if you see fit, but I think that finishes it off nicely. So now that we are completed card number 2, here are a couple of samples. This is the one I showed earlier in class. Again, extended handled on an angle using these oval pieces from the Modern Oval Nesting set and just creating some nice horizontal movement to move that forward. This is how we roll. I think one of my favorite sentiments on that set. Here is another one with some fun colors, nice and bold and bright, but using the shorter handle this time, just having the tote just here in the corner, we can carry we can carry anything together. And then last but not least, if you have things to make sliders, you can actually put your tote into action and have it as a slider card to give to a friend. I have also done some samples where I've used pattern paper on those front pockets, change up the colors, and you can really have a lot of fun customizing and playing with this, just like the other pieces in this collection. Okay, who is ready for card number 3? This time we are working with the designer purse, and look how cute that is. And we're going to pull out the ribbon stamp set again and use it. It is perfectly sized to go on this purse. So let us get our cardstock ready. This one is very straightforward and we can use a lot of the smaller pieces that we have already got set aside in our pile. Don't forget your card base. We do need a little bit of black, but we should be able to pull it from this piece. If not, you do have another solid piece that you can use for that. We need a little bit of white for stamping on. I'm going to pull just this little scrappy piece here, not use that one. And then we need 4 pieces of cardstock for the background. So there is a little bit of fairy tale left over from before. There is a little bit of waterfall left over from before. Yeah, that's right. And then we should have, just digging in my little pile here, we have a little piece of Bellini And we should have a little piece of chiffon left. Let me just do. Oh, no, we haven't dug into the chiffon yet. So we've got a whole piece of chiffon here that we can cut down for our background pieces. Those pieces are all going to be 1 3/4 by 2.5, but we will cut them in just a moment. For the purse, we do have the black. We do have a little bit of the lilac, which again, we should be able to pull from the bottom of that and make it fit. And then the teal topaz, we actually need 2 pieces. We have one smaller piece that is from previous cards, and then we have a full piece as well. And you do need the 2 pieces because the die to make this larger strap does take up a fair amount of real estate. So we will need that. We need both pieces. All right, the rest of these pieces can go into our stash. And we can get started. You need your stamp set, of course, and your die set as well. So with this one here, we are just doing a straight strap for the closure. This little piece here holds the buckle. Then we have the cute little charms that we're going to do out of black and this top piece here. Maybe I will spread them out just like we did last time. We'll do our die cutting first and then we can do our background. I'm just going to trim off some of this excess here. Get it out of the way. That can go into my scrap pile. So on this piece here, we can do, this is the small handle. And then we need that strappy piece. On the black, we need the buckle and the charms and this horizontal piece, which I think if I go like this, that's going to fit in there. And then over here, we need the purse base. So just like the rolling tote, there is kind of a base piece and there is a front panel piece. And then we have our large strap, which should fit on that piece right there. These are different flaps and different closures that you can mix and match and play with and make them all pretty and personalized. All right, let's slide. And let's get our die cutting machine out. Here we go. So I'm going to do my large handle first. It already has a nice little corner there, so we shouldn't have too much trouble going through our machine. And you know what? We've got some room, so why don't I squeeze this purple piece on at the same time. Really load up the machine and maximize our bicep cranking. Okay. Roll this guy through. Looks like I had a little black dot from a previous card that was stuck to my plate, but that's okay, and we can keep that extra cardstock for other projects. Poke this out. There's my handle. And the big handle. Lots of options, so you can, I'll show you a few samples later on. You can use the big handle, you can use the small handle, you can do them facing up or facing down. So this is just scrap. You can save it for a future project. Here is our big strap. The rest of this is also now scrap. You can throw it in your scrap pile. lots of great, I mean, there's not a lot of pieces in this particular set. However, lots of different combinations that you can do. So, it's almost like playing paper dolls, that you can be a fashion designer and create your own purses. And there are a number of Spellbinders embossing folders that I'm going to show you that can create some nice patterns on it. You need something with a smaller pattern, but they look really awesome with that little bit of extra dimension. All right, this piece here is scrap. We are done with that. We don't actually use this darker color on our last card. So we're good to go, and all we have left is this black piece. So again, I'm just gonna snip off the excess, and let's do these guys. So these little charms, I call them charms. I'm not exactly sure if there's a technical name for them or not. They are very detailed and delicate, like the buckle on the suitcase. However, we are not putting the liner sheet on the back because it's one of those pieces that you want to have some glue on the front and some glue on the back. It kind of tucks and does some different things. So don't use liner sheet on that one. And I'll show you why when we are assembling. All right, so those 3 pieces are now all set. And that is literally all the die cutting that we need to do for this card. Oops, I think. Be careful when you're throwing your scraps away. I almost threw away one of my little charms because it's stuck inside the paper. Get rid of the scrap. And for this one, we are using the larger buckle, but again, keep your stash of the smaller ones so that way you don't have to die cut it in the future. All right, so that's it for die cutting. And we can also cut our background papers. So once again, we are cutting these all at 1 3/4 by 2.5. I think this one, yeah, so this one is already 2 3/4. So as long as we go in that direction, it's going to make these 4 quadrants that we are putting onto our card background. I mean, this is the truest form of color blocking. They are literally blocks. So this is your Bellini. Let's do the, because I said that was already 2 3/4. Let's do 1 3/4 first. Bigger piece is scrap. Little piece, we're just going to rotate and do our 2.5 measurement, just getting rid of a little smidge. And all 4 pieces are going to be the same. So once again, let's put this in horizontal and do the 1 3/4. Scrap. And down to 2.5. So scrap and keep. 1 3/4 again. By 2.5. And 1 3/4. Keep this one. We will likely need it for card number 4, and then by 2.5. So with all of these cards today, I have done the hard work for you in terms of designing the cards, but you also have decisions to make as to, you know, what colors you want to go where and how you want to manipulate things. And that all goes to your cognitive health. Crafting is really good for keeping your cognitive health strong, keeping those mindsets strong. So all of those things are great when it comes to the mental health aspects. And hopefully, if you are crafting with a friend today, you are having lots of fun. And it's always amazing to me how you can walk through the same steps and have the same supplies, but your cards will end up a little bit different. So it's always fun to see that creative process happening. Okay, so I've got my card base here. I am putting the fold at the top. It's a nice landscape card. And I have arranged my rectangles so that I've got the chiffon in the top left corner. I've got the seaside in the top right-hand corner. I've got the, is that seaside or was it waterfall? It is seaside. I think I did say that correctly, but it is the lighter of all the teals. I've got Fairy Tale in the bottom left, and I've got the Bellini in the bottom right. But you can do whatever order you like. I like having the two peaches kind of across from each other, but you do you. All right, so when we're gonna put these on our cards, and we're actually gonna start right in that top left-hand corner, leaving a little white border all the way around. We will have some extra white down here at the bottom, and that is intentional. If that's not something that appeals to you, you can always move your pieces down a little bit, but I like having that little base for the purse to sit on at the bottom. All right, I am going to use liquid glue this time, if it can get started. There we go. Just dries out sometimes in between segments here. And there we go. Fill that in. And I like doing the liquid glue. I mean, tape runner is great as well, but the liquid glue just gives me that little room to wiggle and maneuver. So that's going in that top left corner, keeping our nice border around the outside. Then I'm going to do the seaside next. And that's going to go right here beside it. And if the space in between is a little bit larger than around the outside, don't worry about that. The eye is going to be drawn to the purse. It's not going to be worried too much about that spacing. Then we've got our Fairy Tale. Underneath. And just try to align your vertical lines as best you can. And finishing it off with Bellini. There we go. All right, we're going to leave that off to the side to just set and settle in. We will go back and stamp the sentiment before we add our purse onto here, but we can let this sit just for a minute while we assemble our purse. Now this base piece here, if you look at it really closely, let me zoom in just a smidge. There we go. If you look at it closely, first of all, there are two vertical embossed lines on here. Let's see if it shows up in the light. There we go. That'll help you position your front panel, which best fits when it's vertical. But where you have some options is right now, those points are a little bit into the lower third of the purse. You could absolutely turn it around and have it be in the topper half, that was not good English, but in that top half. I tend to like it to sit lower because that balances the handle and everything that's happening on top. But again, it's just another great option that you can have. And then this piece here is just going to go on top in between those two etched lines. Like so. And your corners will hang off a little bit on the bottom. I try to always make sure that my bottom is lined up, and then my top could hang off a little bit, but that gives you room for attaching the handles, etc. later on. So there we have our front panel on top of our base. The next piece we're going to add is this little black trim. This is another piece that looks really fantastic if you do it in a metallic paper, a foiled paper. There are rounded corners, and the rounded corners match the corners on that front handle piece. So that goes on the top. Get rid of any excess glue. The next piece I'm going to do is the strap. So I've got my stitched strap, and there is a straight across end and there is a rounded end. The rounded end actually goes at the top, and the straight end matches the straight end on the clasp. So you'll see there is a little tiny curved etched line here, and that matches up with that black piece. So it creates that beautiful clasp on this piece. All right, scooch it so that you don't see any purple showing on the bottom. And then this attaches to the front of your purse. And just to give it a little dimension, I like to have it sticking up just a little bit so it looks like it is curving over the top of the purse. So when you're putting your glue on, don't go all the way to the top. Just get little bits of it there and have that sticking over top. Those colors look really nice together. Gives it a really nice modern feel to it. Okay, next thing is our two handles. So we've got our purple handle and we have our teal topaz handle. Just like on the suitcase, we've got two little balls here, which is the perfect placement for your glue. I also like to put a little bit of glue down here on that horizontal bit because the strap does go behind the purse. So that'll just help you attach it in both places. And the easiest way I find to do this is to keep this flat on your surface, put your glue on, because this piece can be a little flexible and a little bit tricky to work with. So if you keep that flat and then you take your purse, the balls are going to aim for the backs of the corners, like so. And this is just going to nest in place here on your handle. So a really easy way to put that together. Let the purse go to the handle. Don't bring the handle to the purse. I'm going to now flip it over face down so that you can see there's where our two balls are. On this handle here, there are also two balls. And when you put it in, they don't quite match. So the purple handle is going to go just inside the teal handle. And again, you just need a little bit of glue on those balls and drop it into place. Hold it for a second so that it sets. And there we go. So this purse is absolutely coming together lickety-split, super easy. Two more things to do. We're going to do the little charms next. And let's see, I'm going to put it here on the white so that I can hold it up to the camera. So these charms, there is a right and a left. The squares go to the outside. The little loops come up and come to the inside. And I'm just going to show you this without glue first. There is a little ball here on the end of that loop. That loop is going to go behind the handle, and the little square bit just sits on the hardware here. And again, it is really best to use liquid glue so you've got a little bit of wiggle with it. So I like to put just the smallest dot here on the front, and then I'm going to flip it over and put a little bit of glue on the square on the back. So that's why I said don't use the liner sheet, because you have glue on the front and the back. And you're going to tuck it in, slide it down. And if they're a little bit crooked, that just means they're on a jaunty angle. They do not have to be perfect. So there is that piece. And we're going to do the same with the other side. And this is flexible enough that if that this inside piece doesn't quite land where you want it, you can fold it, you can scooch it in, and it will still hold really nicely. All right. So come on this side this time. Glue on the ball on the front, glue on the square on the back. And even though it might be a little bit messier that way, I actually find it easier than to try to glue one piece and then glue the other piece separately. Get it in place, and if you are using a good quality glue that dries clear, even though it's showing a little bit of white now, it will dry nice and clear and you won't even know the glue was there. So there. A little bit finicky. I'll give you a minute just to get that far. I am going to get out my stamping platform. We're going to do our stamping and finish this card off. This one's pretty straightforward. There we go. So first things first, I am going to stamp "Life is Short" by the purse in this top left-hand corner of the card base, right on top of that chiffon bit. So "Life is Short" is down here a little ways, and that one's going to go right in that top corner. And then "By the Purse" can tuck underneath it, and I have offset it a little bit. So it's kind of dead center. Let me go that way a little bit. Dead center in that chiffon piece. So get some good ink on that. And there we go. Close it over. And it looks like I at least have to do the "By the Purse" a second time. So it doesn't hurt to do the other piece a second time. There we go. Beautiful. And I'm just going to leave that on there and I'll clean it a little bit later. What I do need is my ribbon stamp. So that is on this stamp here. We're going to get our ribbon out just like we did on the first card. And let me just tuck it. I'm going to tuck it right there so that I'm using an area of the paper that's kind of out of the way. With my green apple ink. So here on my sample, I did use just a scrap of Seaside instead of the white on my sample. You can stamp on color. I just want that little bit more brightness from the white. Okay. And unfortunately, this guy does not have a coordinating die. So we are going to quickly fussy cut him. Fortunately, he's very easy to fussy cut and still makes a great embellishment on our purse. So a little snip around the corner. Just like so. A little bit more. There we go. Down the side. Snip. Snip. Easy. All right, so that is now ready to go. So let us get our card base and we're going to position this Once again, using foam squares and probably just a little bit of foam tape behind, or sorry, foam strips behind the ribbon, because I think that'll fit better than this guy will. So 4 corners once again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Definitely finding our rhythm here. This one's going a lot faster. Okay, and we are going to offset this one here to the right-hand side. You still want a bit of that Bellini showing. So, but you also want to make sure you're not covering up your sentiment. Your purse can come down a little bit lower on that white area, just like so. And I'm not too worried about these being loose. If it bothers you, you could use a little bit of liquid glue behind it, but I don't think it's really necessary. We'll take a little strip of this to put behind our ribbon. And that will embellish our purse. Just kind of there. And we can finish off with our gems. So once again, this one's got just very subtle, very simple gems. And I don't know if you can, there you go. I also added a gem onto the clasp of the purse just to zhuzh it up a little bit. So let's do big, not so big, medium, and I'm going to use that same, no, you know what, I've got one, been using up the ones that I was using with my prototype. I've got one little super big one left, so let's put that on the clasp. And there is our purse card. That one came together really easily. And you can see, I mean, this is great for using scraps. There's lots of ways that you can color block. You could make these even into smaller blocks and have multiple colors or alternating colors. Have lots of fun with it. And this is where you really want the contrast. You've got darker colors here in your purse and softer colors in the background. So as we finish this one off, here are just a couple of samples. So here is another one. It's very similar color scheme, but here I've used the Cross My Heart embossing folder here on that front panel. Use some embossing powder on my sentiment, and that's one of the different flap closures. This one here, another flap closure, and I've used pattern paper on that front panel instead of just solid. So that changes the look, and you pull your other colors from that pattern paper. This one doesn't have any charms and it just has the short handle. And then this last one, using that embossing folder again, but this time I put the handle downwards instead of upwards. I took the charm and I just snipped off the little handle part and just used the square, and took one of the clasps and turned it upside down as well to look like the snaps on a purse. So there is your designer purse and some different ways that you can use that. Alrighty, friends, we are on to our fourth and final card for today. I hope you've been having fun and experimenting with different ways to use cardstock and color blocking. This last technique is a lot of fun as well. So we're going to create this beautiful striped background. Again, I'm going to show you how to put it on that diagonal to show that forward movement. And we are going to feature our awareness ribbon in the green for mental health awareness. And a very important message: you are never alone on this path. This Stampin' Die set has lots of great features. So here is the die, and it does have inserts that you can use or not use as you see fit with the words strength and hope. We're going to use strength today, and there are lots and lots of really great sentiments on this one. Sending courage wrapped in a card. There is strength in your smile. Courage shows in every step you take, and so on. A little bit more on the serious side, but definitely very encouraging and really shows that friends stick together in those tough times. So let's get started on this and finish this class strong. I'm going to put the die aside for right now and the stamp aside for right now. The die cutting is actually very easy for this card. Just the 3 pieces that we are going to cut out of Rainforest. Don't forget your card base. So I've got that here. Colors of cardstock. So we do have this one slightly smaller piece of Rainforest left. Did we have, and we still actually have a full panel as well, but if you use the small one, you can save that full panel for something else. And then we need 4 colors for our stripes. I have chosen full panels for these. I think a few of them there may have been smaller panels, but cutting strips, I actually find it's easier to have a full panel. So we have lilac, we have waterfall. This is the medium teal. We have the Bellini, which is the darker of the peachy colors. And we have chiffon, which is the lighter of the peachy colors. You will also need, and then you've got lots of goodies left over here. You will have portions of these too. So still extra cardstock to make extra cards and have some fun. This is the card where you will also need that piece of computer paper, printer paper, cut to 4x6. I've written the size on here in pencil. You don't need to do that. I'm not going to erase it because I think that our strips are going to cover that up. But if you have inadvertently gone on and written on them in pencil, you are absolutely welcome to erase that as well. So let's do our die cutting first. We're just going to cut the 3 pieces for the ribbon, and then the other cardstock is cut using your paper trimmer. Bring this over here for the last time. And like I said, just 3 simple pieces. We've got our 1 ribbon arm. This one I am not going to do the insert. Strength is going to go in this other arm, and I do like to tape that just so that it stays centered in that opening. Like so. And then we have a little connector piece. That's the piece that's going to tie the 2 ribbons together. No pun intended. So those go there. If you ever decided that you wanted to have both the words strength and hope, you absolutely can do it. Just know that strength needs to go on top and hope will poke out this bottom half so that you can use both. Just make sure you put strength on top so that it can be seen. All right. Last time through the die cutting machine. There we go. So we have our 1 arm, our connector piece, and our strength. So you can see how that, it's not really cut, it's not really embossed, it does just press into that paper. If the little centers do pop out, not a big deal. If you want to go in with a very pointy pickup tool to poke those other ones out, you also can do that. I'm not going to worry about it. It's going to be on a background, and I'm not too worried about stuff showing through. Obviously, this can now go into your scrap pile. And let's just quickly put it together so that we don't have to worry about that later on. So you do have your 3 pieces here do a little zoom in here. This connector piece, like many of our other pieces, does have etched lines to help you line that up. I don't know if you're hitting the light there on the camera well enough, but you will see it in front of you. And I'm going to put the solid one on first. And so what I like to do is I just like to put the glue in that section on the connector piece so that I know exactly where it's going. And I'm going to just nest that corner and follow that embossed line. And I'm going to do the same with the other one. Now this is where you might want to kind of dry fit it first to kind of eyeball where it's going to connect here in the middle, because now what I'll do is I'll put the glue here and I'll just put a little smudge of it there so that when I overlap, it connects it together. Really quite simple, very easy to do in lots of different colors. I have also done it where I've done all 3 pieces in 3 different shades of green, and I've also done it where the 2 ribbon arms are the same color and I do that connector piece a darker color so that it looks a little bit more like a shadow. But really, that's all there is to that, and we can tuck that off to the side. Pop back out. All right, let me show you the measurements here and we will talk about what we're going to do. There's my computer paper. What we're going to do is we have 4 colors of cardstock here. Excuse me. 3 of them, we are going to cut 4 strips that are a 1/2 inch wide. So we're already 4 1/4 inch wide here. We're going to cut 4 strips that are a 1/2 inch out of the chiffon, the Bellini, and the waterfall. The purple one is going to be a little bit more of an accent because it is a much stronger color. I wanted to have just a slightly thinner profile for that. So out of the lilac, we're going to cut it at 1/4 inch. So 3 colors at 1/2 inch, 1 color at 1/4 inch. If you want to rearrange the colors, you go right ahead. And we are going to cut 4 of each in all 4 pieces. You will likely end up with extras, but I would rather have extra and not have to go back and cut. And it just makes things easier. So let's start here with my paper trimmer. And I'm going to go and use, excuse me, this side of the measurements. Oh, sorry, you could do that. I'm actually going to do the math in my head and know that this is 5 1/2 inches long. So I'm going to cut 4. So I'm going to cut at 5. And this one has just a little schmutz at the end, a little imperfection on that corner. So I'm just going to flip it the other way. So I start at 5 1/2. I want them 1/2 inches. So I'm going to go 5 inches and cut 4 1/2 and cut 4 inches and cut and 3 1/2 inches and cut. So out of my chiffon, there are my 4 strips. And we're going to, this piece now can go into your extras stash. I'm going to do the same thing here with Bellini. So start at 5 1/2, then go to 5 and cut 4 1/2 and cut 4 and cut and 3 1/2 and cut. That should give me my 4. So 4, 4 into the extras. Waterfall, same thing. Measure it to the 5 1/2, then slide it to 5 because we're doing 1/2 inches. 5, 4 1/2, 4, and 3 1/2. Okay, Last but not least is the lilac. This is the one that we're going to 1/4 of an inch. So a little bit different this time, starting at 5.5, go to 5 1/4, 5, 4 3/4, and 4. No, 4 3/4, 4.5. So there I've got my 4 1/4-inch strips as well. Like I said, we're gonna have some left over. You can cut a few more if you wanted to do a second card like this. But it's nice to have that stash all ready to go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our piece of computer paper, and this is going to be our base, our foundation piece. And you do want to use that computer paper, that copy paper, because it is nice and thin. So when you're adding your cardstock, especially the Color Wheel cardstock that is 100 pound in weight, you're going to keep this nice and light, so it's not going to add a lot of bulk to your card, but it really gives you something to work on so that you can then build it separately and apply it to your card. This will also help us with the diagonal. So here I'm going to grab my tweezers and I am going to start. I'm going to go waterfall, then Bellini, then chiffon, then the lilac. So that's the order I am following here. I like having that thin one, kind of the fourth one down. And I'm going to do this without glue first, just to show you. So what we're going to do is we are just going to start by stacking at the top and layering it all the way down. Yes, your pieces are going to hang off, so don't glue all the way to the end. And let's not worry too much about it being straight or even. Well, straight is important, but even on either end is less important because we are going to trim it down afterwards. The first one is always the hardest. You want it right at the top there on your computer paper. And again, don't go all the way to the end. Just scribble a little bit of liquid glue. I'm going to turn this sideways just so I can see it a little bit better. But that can just wiggle right to the top of your computer paper, and it is okay that it hangs off the edge. Once that first piece is on, everything else just ladders down really easily, and we're just going to keep alternating. So Bellini is next. You don't need a ton of glue. It's just going to ladder into place. Scooch it, take a look, make sure everything is butted up against each other. Now we'll do chiffon. And if you do get a little overzealous and you do get glue to the ends of your strip, don't worry, just go in, clean it off, just so it doesn't stick to your tabletop. Okay, and now I'm going to do that purple. And tuck it in. And now we're just going to repeat all the way down to the bottom of our paper. Nice repetitive motions. Having fun choosing colors. Making that pleasing pattern. And it does help. It does help, especially if you are, kind of getting into that zone. Put your papers in order so that you don't grab the wrong one by mistake. And you know what? If you do, don't sweat it. Because only someone who is looking at it super closely will pick up on that boo-boo. And you can just say it was an artistic choice. All right. Scooch that into place. And I'm just gently pushing it up so that it's making sure that there's no big gaps in between each strip. Okay. See, it went all the way to the end. And you can see my ends are not even. They're pretty jig-jaggy. We're going to fix that when it's all done. So that's why I like to have my strips be a little bit longer than my computer paper. So it gives me a little bit of flexibility to be imperfect. Yep, right color. Scooch it into place. One more, I think, one more chiffon. This is also a handy way because my paper is longer as well. That way you don't have to worry about the math so much. Because we're going to trim it down to make it fit. So as long as you're longer and than your finished card, then you are going to be just fine. So there's one last purple. Excuse me. We'll do one more waterfall. And looks like there's a little bit of space hanging off. So you could go ahead and do one more color if you wanted. But I know that I'm already longer than what I need. So I'm not going to waste that strip. I'm going to leave it off and leave that little bit of white as is. Looking a little bit messy, but we are going to tidy that all up. So what we want to do now is get out our trimmers, and we are going to trim this piece down to 3 3/4 by 5 1/2. We're going to make it a little bit more narrow, and we're going to make it the right length for our portrait orientation card. Pardon me. All right. So it is better to flip it over this way and make sure that the solid piece is at the top. That little flimsy piece at the of copy paper that's left, we are going to put that at the bottom. So let's flip it over, and I'm going to cut just a little bit over onto the white so that all of these pieces fall off, like so. So there we've tidied up one side of our piece. And then if I flip it over, this is where I want to go to that 3 3/4 mark. Like so. So I know this is a nice straight side. Stick that up to the top. And away we go. So now our two sides are nice and even. We're going to just tidy up our bottom. Now, it's up to you. You could really play around with it to try and get these two teal pieces to be even. And maybe I will do that as well. I'm going to trim I'm eyeballing it, so just a little bit of a hair off the top. And then I flip it around, and I'm going to cut it at that 5 1/2 inch mark. Like so. Okay. The base work is now done. The second thing that we have to do is just like we did with that pie piece on card number 2 and our diagonal on card number 1, we are going to do a little bit of trimming on this. And I'm going to flip this way just so I make sure I'm doing this the right way. So I've got this upside down. I want to measure in 1/4 of an inch. So when it's face down, it's 1/4 of an inch from the right side. So I'm just going to do a little tick mark here. It's not very big. And then down here at the bottom, I'm doing 1/4 inch from the bottom left-hand corner. In reality, it's going to be, it's going to end up being on the opposite sides, but this is a great way to just make sure that you've got it going in the right direction. So from our tick mark to our edge, our corner, up and down, and opposite tick mark, and maybe it's easier if you flip it around, tick mark down to the corner, start it in the middle, up and then down. And voila! Look at that beautiful diagonal striped piece. It does take a little bit of being methodical, but it is really nice to have that functionality to it and have some fun. And actually, I think I did it maybe a little bit more straight than my original sample, but you get the idea. Okay, so now we can take this piece, we can take our card base, and this time I will use tape runner just to get it all over. Flip that back. And this is going to go onto our card, making sure your bottom is straight, your top is straight, and it gives you that diagonal look onto your card, especially when you fold it over. We are going to go ahead and stamp our sentiment just on this bottom chiffon piece so that it stands out nice. So let's tuck that in there, put our magnet, and you are never alone on this path. It's this fourth sentiment here. And it's a nice one because it fits on our strip really well. Close it over. Let's stamp away. Nicely there. Beautiful. Maybe once more to give it a little bit more oomph. Spectacular. And then all we need to do now is attach our ribbon. So I'm just going to use some foam squares, one in the center, one at the top. Does fit nicely there, and then one on each of the tails. With strength being on the side that it is, I like to turn it on that angle so that strength, not totally straight, but has a little bit more readability to it. This also helps you kind of point down to some of the key words. And then we will finish off with just a little spray of gems. So I've got 1, 2. Oh, that one didn't stick. The adhesive didn't come with it. There we go. 2, 3, and that one. Yep, okay. 2 and 3. And just like that, our ribbon card is complete. So lots of fun. You can really play with colors and use this technique in a lot of different ways. Just a couple of samples. So here I've used a cobblestone stencil in the background just to give it some dimension. And here's where I've got the 3 different shades of green there on this this green ribbon. I have done it for breast cancer using the pink ribbon and some pretty flowers. And then, much like the suitcase, I have done a sample with just the stamps. You don't need that large ribbon. You can keep it really simple and impactful by just using the stamps. So there you have it. 4 amazing cards using the We All Have Baggage collection. Let me just pull these out. I hope you had fun and are proud of these beautiful cards that we have made today. Just do one last shot of it there before I say goodnight. Please do leave comments here. I will come back and check frequently, and I would love to see what you make. So if you are crafting and posting on your social channels, please use the hashtag WeAllHaveBaggage. I would love to see what you are making. All right, we're just going to do one last goodbye up here. There we go. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. It has been an absolute honor to be able to create not only these cards, but this collection for our crafting community. We do all have baggage, but in this community, you are never alone. And hopefully this collection will help you connect with your friends and with other people to help lighten their loads. Thank you so much. All the best and happy mental health. Well, I guess maybe not happy, but wishing you a strong and connected mental health month.